Thanks a lot. First, I want to thank everyone to be here despite the heat. I think it's actually the warmest day in Paris since ever. So, so much? Great. Okay. So thanks a lot for being there. I also want to extend a special thanks to Mathilde, who's here. She's a tech recruiter at Heetch. It's actually part of her interview panel back like a couple of months ago. And I asked her, how could you make this place a more diverse place? And part of her answer was like hosting or co-hosting meetups like this one. So we are just like a few months after. So thank you, Mathilde, and also thanks for liaising with women in machine learning data science to make this happen. So I know you're not here to me talk about Heetch, but I'm going to try to make it very, very short. First, I'm going to just like summarize the agenda for tonight. So there's this introduction. Then there will be a first. Yeah, then there will be a first presentation, which is called Using Rich Supervision and Transfer Learning Techniques to Build Knowledge Graph to Improve Student Experiences at Chegg by Sanghamitra. Then we have another one called High Performance Language Detection of Web Pages by Cécile. And then there will be a panel moderated by Natalie. Everything you always wanted to know about Twitter, but were afraid to ask. So, each in 5 minutes. I'll start with our mission. For those who don't know us, we are a mobility app. We are not the only one. We connect passengers with drivers. We're not the only ones, but we think we can do it our own way. And that also, I think, like, comes to the fact that we have a peculiar history, and we started as a peer-to-peer ride-hailing company. And yeah, we just connect passengers and drivers that actually brings a lot of super interesting data and data science problems. But we think we can do it our own way, which is a more friendly and more human way than some of our competitors. So I'm just going to give a very brief list of facts about us. First, we are alive. A lot of people actually, particularly in France, don't know that, and that's because when we started as a peer-to-peer app, our model got challenged by the French authorities, and there was like a lot of viral activity because young people loved us around the lawsuit, and it's a lawsuit that we ended up losing. But we managed to relaunch quite successfully the business in March 2017 with professional drivers and moving from a like night-only model to a full day model with professional drivers. It worked well. It enabled us to raise money. So in particular, in May we raised 34 million euros, and in the end that's money we will put to good use to. First, I consolidate our position in the VTC market in France. So today we are third. We're second in Belgium, but also interestingly expand in African countries. So we're already in Morocco. We just launched in Algeria, and we're also launching in Cameroon very soon, and also Ivory Coast. So Data at Heetch, today we're 1,000 people, about a third in engineering and 8 in science. The objective, though, is very ambitious. We want to double the team in the next year or so. Just to give you a sense of like how big our big data is, we publish about 100 million, or like over 100 million of events per day, and we have like about 3 tera of data. And it's exciting data because because of our product and the spatial aspect of it. So again, I want to be quick, so I'm not gonna like show you an architecture diagram, but I'm just gonna show you a few logos that you may or may not recognize. But our stack, so Kafka, it's more or less like the of data. So on the left, you have Kafka for streaming events. You have Segment to integrate third-party apps. Our data lake is in S3, so hosted by Amazon. Aluma is what we use for database replication. Airflow is our workflow engine. Here you have, like in the middle, Databricks, so that's our hosted Spark platform. Redshift, obviously. The one below is also Amazon, it's SageMaker, that's for model management. And then some more the CRM and analytics side of things, you have Looker, which is a good alternative to Tableau, and Braze, so yeah, for CRM. Again, I'm not going to go in details, but some of our focus areas from a data science standpoint. So we're working on intelligent dispatch meaning allocating optimally or ride requests to our drivers in real time. Dynamic pricing is about filtering demand when the marketplace is unbalanced by correcting the prices. And related to that, we are also working on real-time demand supply prediction. And last but not least, we are also concerned about safety for our drivers and passengers. So that's also a topic of interest. I mean, there's much more than that, but that's just to give you an overview. Oops. We are hiring, so that's the mandatory slide. Feel free to come to me or to come to Mathilde if you want to know more. Also we set up a promo code for you if you do not use the service since we relaunched. So it's very simple, WIMLDS. And that's it for me. So I'm gonna give the mic to Sanghamitra. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Etienne. It was very interesting. Those who've been in France for a while heard the story of Heetch, and it's really exciting that you revived from such a difficult situation and now up and kicking. So thanks again for hosting us. We are really happy that you arranged some air conditioning here. We were a bit scared, and thanks a lot about the water. And as our habit is, I'll give you several pieces of information about this meetup. First of all, how many people here for the first time? Wow, welcome to the club. Very happy to see you. And you will see this is a very friendly meetup. We have several members of the team. We are 4, and 3 of us are present today. First of all, Caroline, who is a co-founder, Marina, who is a machine learning engineer, and I'm Natalie, and I work in business development. Now, WiMLDS is a worldwide organization, and our mission is to support and promote women and gender minorities who are practicing, studying, or are interested in machine learning and data science. So within machine learning and data science, very largely interpreted. So we have data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, business analysts, and also those who want to become data scientists. And the principle is very simple. Only women are speaking, but obviously Meetup is free and open for everyone to attend, regardless of gender and background. It's part of a worldwide organization, more than 35,000 members, and we are very proud because Paris chapter is the 3rd largest in the world, and we have 2,700 members. Thank you so much for following us and to coming to our event. One of the events in January was under heavy snow. Today is the hottest day. We really pick our days not very suitably. Maybe next year we should do run some algorithms to have a better predictions. Now, You can also follow us basically on any social media available. You can follow us on Twitter. We publish plenty of useful stuff. For example, every Friday we publish a paper written or co-written by a woman. So it's Friday WiMLDS papers. We already published maybe 20 papers, so it will continue. You can also follow us on Medium, because after every meetup, we publish a summary with slides, with videos when there is a video, and obviously with takeaways and information. Now, you can also follow us on LinkedIn. What we do on LinkedIn, we like raising profiles of our members, because our members are pretty amazing. They give talks at our meetup, but also they give talks at different meetups. So if you want to know more about awesome colleagues and sisters in crime, in data science, so please follow us there. Couple of announcements. Our friends at ASPCI, it's one of the Grande École in physics and chemistry, are organizing a summer school for Lycean. It's high school students, or around 16, I guess, between 16 and 17, and number of our members, number of volunteers, agreed to participate and to talk about data science. So first of all, thanks very much for doing it. And also, if you still have some sisters, cousins, colleagues, neighbors who might be interested in this summer school, you can still apply. It's next week. Very big announcement, nothing to do with us, but if you are in Paris on the 18th of September, Kate Crawford is giving inaugural lecture at the École Normale Supérieure. It's free to attend, but you have to register. So I registered today, there was no problem whatsoever. So if you are a fan of Kate Crawford and want to see her in live, you can still register. So do, by all means. Now, we can already announce our first meetup of the next season, and it's going to be joint meetup with another group called Design-Driven Development French Chapter, and it's going to be at VP Tech. Thank you, Betty. And the topic of the event is going to be Hacker la culture, culture hacks, basically. And it will have a different format, and the meetup is going to be exceptionally in French, but obviously our networking is in any language you want to do. And there will be several lightning talks, including by Alice Lebois, who will represent our meetup, who is a senior research engineer at Netatmo. And the meetup is going to be concluded by a keynote by Audrey Neveu, who is quite well known in the tech community. And if you don't know her, you have a summer task to watch her talk, The Hitchhiker Guide to Diversity. Now that's the September meetup, so the registration's already open. You can register. Tonight's agenda. So we have two talks, and then we have a panel, and we have a talk by Sanghamitra Deb, who is hailing from California, especially for our event, not especially, but we are very happy to have you here. Then we have another talk by Cécile, and then we have a panel discussion on Twitter. Now, you can obviously tweet about this event. There are plenty of hashtags. There is a hashtag of WiMLDS Paris. You also can add Heetch Engineering and Inside Heetch. So there are plenty of opportunities for practicing your Twitter skills. And now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. As I said, Sanghamitra Deb is working at Chegg, which is a company in online education space. And she's going to talk about her work, and also we'll talk a bit more about her company. So thank you very much for reaching out to us and proposing, on Twitter, reaching out to us on Twitter and proposing to give this talk. We are very happy to have international speakers. It's one of our ambitions to have more international speakers. Lucy, thank you very much, Sangha, and please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And before I begin, I'd like to say that I've been following WiMLDS Paris for a long time, and I look at like different achievements, and that inspires me a lot, and that led me to think, I'll be in Paris, maybe I can get involved with this group or just reach out to someone. So I reached out to Caroline, and then she said, well, let's figure out if we can do something, and then this happened. So a very big thank you to all the organizers for having me here. Before I start, a little bit about myself. Before getting into data science, I was working in astrophysics. I did a PhD, and I was in research for a few years. And then when I moved into like the labs at Accenture, which was a few years of really good learning opportunity. And then finally, I wanted to move in a space of healthcare or education, and to also do a smaller company. And so the opportunity at Chegg was very ideal because it kind of brought me back to my initial academic background, but also being able to help with education in from the tech side as well. So pardon me for the title, but basically what I'll talk about is building a knowledge graph. And the reason a knowledge graph is important for a company like Chegg. So we are like an education technology company, so you can imagine we have a lot of content. A lot of content in physics, chemistry, history, art, like in all possible subjects that people are studying. So being able to organize content in like a good fashion gives us a lot of benefit. Before I move ahead, I'd like to thank my colleagues as well who are not here, but I work closely with them. We have a pretty diverse team, as you can see, and I'm lucky in that direction as well. Before I go further, I have a question. How many of you work with text data? Doesn't have to be machine learning. It could be trying to do keywords or a few people. Okay, so I think this is good. So, what is the goal of something like natural language processing? The main goal is to give some structure to unstructured data. Like you have loads of text. All companies have loads of text. For Heetch, for instance, eventually you have text between, or maybe you have it now, between drivers and passengers. In other fields like legal, there's also loads of text. And the main way, in a lot of fields, the main way people gather information from it is people read through those texts and make some informed decision. The goal of NLP is to remove, or not remove completely actually, but more like replace a human as much as possible, maybe 90%, and provide information in a structured way so that the final 10% of decision making can be done by humans. And in some cases, depending on your use case, you could probably remove the human by 100% as well. And going into the different industries, I have looked at healthcare data a little bit in my previous job, but healthcare is one of those examples where it's very similar to education in the sense that you have a lot of jargon, a lot of data, and it's totally not organized. And the benefit of organizing the data is sometimes connecting like a patient to a clinical trial, because you didn't have to read through huge amounts of publications. You could identify the disease name and the patients that were there in that clinical trial. Let me skip the next slide. So how is this process done? Typically, you hear of a lot of methods, and I will talk about it a little bit as well. But an important part is to have some kind of pipeline where you can feed some text in and get some desired information. Maybe you get some tags that you need. So you have to define what kind of desired information you need. But at the end of the day, you have to form that problem and then build a pipeline around it. And depending on what your use case is, it's possible that your use case is more of batch nature. So maybe you run your pipelines every day, get the results, and that's good for you, or it could be something of real-time nature. So now let me go a little bit into what is Chegg. Typically, I don't put a lot of slides on it because people say in most places people say don't advertise your company too much. So Chegg is mainly an education technology platform. We actually started out as a textbook rental company. I would like to say 8 to 9 years ago, but something like that. But eventually, like, sort of moved into the digital space. So we have a lot of services. It's mainly in the US, but it is moving out of US. Like, we have a good customer base in Canada, I think Australia as well. And because we've seen organic growth in other countries, we're also putting an effort in that direction. The main products are online tutoring, question answering, or understanding concepts. So a student can go in and ask what is Pascal's law. I mean, that's probably not what they're going to ask. And then someone on the other hand writes down what it is, and this makes like a lot of information available to the students. Flashcards, you get help with writing, math solver, internships, and others. And so just by looking at like the different types of product, you can say that each of them generate a lot of content. And it's like the content that's like the crux of our company. Actually, we have offices all around, and one of our offices is Berlin in Europe, where mainly the math group is based out of. So I will dig deep into one of the products, which is called Chegg Study, and it is like kind of the most popular product, and there are different things. I think students mainly subscribe to that product and pay some amount per month. But basically, the student comes into the site, and they can either find solutions, but they could also ask a question. And so let's say they click a button, and then the question they ask is, what is the difference between classical and statistical approaches to thermodynamics? So once they post that question, they don't get an answer immediately, so there's no one. In online tutoring, typically there will be another person on the other end. Here, there isn't like someone online, but there are people who are constantly answering questions, so this kind of goes in a queue, and the question is probably answered in like 2 minutes, I'm sorry, 2 hours. And so they can come back and look for the answer. And the answer can look something like this, where you have the details of the what classical and statistical dynamics is. And this is also a very general example. People ask very specific questions in their subjects, and we have like subject matter experts in each field, and they kind of come in to answer these questions. So what is the goal? The goal here is to create a knowledge base. And so I will like kind of define what I mean by a knowledge base. So we have all of Chegg content, which is math, it's STEM subjects, history, and we divide them up into several sets of subjects, and this number kind of keeps increasing with time because we uncover different regions which with more growing interest. But let's say this is like 30 or 40 subjects right now, and then in each subject you have like a further drill down where if you just do statistics, then and like I deliberately do statistics so most of us know what's in the slide. And then it breaks down into like these 3 big units: probability, testing, regression, and then you have like subunits to probability, and then it goes on and back. And creating this knowledge graph itself is like a challenge, and I'm not going to talk much about it, but it's mainly like a database. We are initially just doing Postgres, but later on we are planning to go into graph databases. But initially, basically having different kinds of nodes, defining properties of the nodes, also trying to stay as general as possible so that any use case can be picked up from that knowledge base. But in today's talk, I'm mainly going to talk about how to take your content and add one of these tags, like add probability, add discrete probability distributions, add binomial distributions. And once you have these tags, they can be reused in different forms. One of the forms, of course, is when the student asks questions. Once you can put these tags, you can actually point them to the expert that knows that specific thing really well. So someone might know binomial really well and might not be good at normal, and so you could actually send a question to someone who knows binomial. So how does the pipeline look? So this is kind of complex. There are so many different nodes. So at the highest level, if you remember, there were subjects like algebra, statistics, physics. And at this level, the problem is slightly easier in some sense because we have a lot of content in this at the subject level. So using a very simple machine learning pipeline at subject level gives pretty good result. So if I want to just tag with algebra, I could use something like term frequency, inverse document frequency, and this is basically a kind of word count with words like the, of, is, which occur a lot. They are downweighted, but most important words are upweighted. So you could just use something like that, throw it to a classifier like nominal base or SVM. A lot of the times we've seen SVM as well, and then get the predictions for what subject it is, and that works really well. But now if you drill down, like now you want binomial probability distribution, that's very specific. And that's where like you kind of need a more complex pipeline. So we use a bunch of different techniques. One of them is weak supervision, and I'm going to go deep into weak supervision. And one of the nice things about the weak supervision is that most of the time you don't need to be a machine learning person to use it. So a lot of the times I will hire an intern and let them, like they will probably not be a machine learning person at all. Maybe the person just loves to code, and I will like let them build something on weak supervision because you just don't need the background to start. I will not talk about transfer learning, but that is also something that helps a lot, especially because so the transfer learning is mainly learning. If you don't have training data for the problem that you're doing, you learn from a different set of tasks where you have training data. For instance, in our case, we have questions and answers. So we have this training data. If this is a question, then the answer is something like this. So you could use that problem and learn representations from it and reuse it to categorize. And I mean that's all I'm going to talk about that. And if I have time, I will go a little bit into thresholding and active learning. But those are also kind of related to what your use cases and what you want to do. So let me move on. So this is a typical machine learning pipeline. Initially, you collect a lot of data. That part is pretty much done. Not done. It constantly gets done for us. We don't worry a lot about that. Gathering legal data, that's the tricky part, especially if you go keep drilling down that knowledge graph. It gets harder and harder to get legal data as you go more and more granular. And then you do some kind of feature engineering. If you're using deep learning, a lot of times you don't have to use feature engineering, but if you're not, you use some kind of feature engineering that is very like machine learning engineer, comes up with different cases. And then you fit a model, get an output. So I just wanted to say that learning takes us away. Let me go a little deeper into weak supervision. But before I go, any questions? Cool. So what is weak supervision? So the main motivation for weak supervision is that the pipeline that I showed before, there was one part which said gather labeled training data. And typically for any model to work well, you kind of need like, let's say 10,000 training data for a tag that you're trying to decipher. The problem there is now when we think of the knowledge graph at the most granular level, you probably have like at least 100 different nodes there. And so per node, gathering 10,000 training data becomes very expensive. Our subject matter experts typically take 5 minutes to read a question and put a tag on it. So I don't remember the price right now, but it's actually pretty high. And we are in the space where we get like a total number of training data for a subject would be like 4,000 or 5,000. So getting that granular per node is very, very expensive. So the idea of weak supervision is to create rules that kind of use existing knowledge to create more training data and to bootstrap the training data. So it could be different things. For instance, for algebra, let's say we're trying to do a subject classifier and we don't have any training data. We have the questions. Students sometimes label them, but we try to not go on it because it's not always accurate. But you could get Wikipedia data on at subject level and sort of do that. Use that as training data. And I'm pretty sure there are other open source data that you can find at subject level. But that would be like one way of weak supervision. But as you keep going down deeper, one of the things we tried to do is we had subject matter experts, so we kind of asked like for these topics, what are the most common keywords that you think? And that was like much cheaper than asking them to tag a huge amount of content. There are cheaper sources of labels. For instance, Amazon SageMaker has come up with ground truth, and I'm working on a different project using ground truth. But what I've seen is that it's generally cheaper than very experienced subject matter experts. Your labels will not be of higher quality, but that's the expectation. Pre-trained model, again, like when we look at the knowledge base, build a model that says this content belongs to algebra. Make sure that you're only building a model that contains topics in algebra. So if you're like, it should not. You don't need to model it for history. So you can write a rule that says if somehow your model is predicting this is history, it's wrong. And in some cases, you can also get labels from customers. For instance, you can build a preliminary model, and one of the things we do is we show practice questions to students based on what topic they want to study. And we're, of course, wrong. Most of the times our model, we aim for like 80%. So you're pretty much, if you show 5 questions, we're wrong for 1 out of 5 times. And so we try to gather feedback, optional feedback from there as well, how they're doing, if they're interested in giving feedback. I use this package called Snorkel from Stanford. The nice part about this is that when you think of weak supervision, you think of rules, but like, how do you start? Like that kind of sometimes becomes like a blocking aspect. For instance, we wanted to start a machine learning pipeline. Like Python scikit-learn has so many examples. You can just go there, download some data, and like write some code and get something very fast. So the nice thing about Snorkel is that it's they have their tutorials in IPython notebooks, and basically they have a framework where you can write rules, like they call them labeling functions, and write multiple rules, and then they have a framework which combines them to produce training data, which is really helpful. So let me go into a little bit more details. This example is the example from their site, and I like it because it's simple. Basically the goal is to write multiple labeling functions, the functions should encode one of the weak supervision techniques. It could be like a pattern, or like, do you find this word here? And just to give like a little bit more context, let's say your goal is to find, if you find 2 people, your goal is to find if they're married or not. And so one of the sentences you have is, David and his wife Mel boarded the flight to Adelaide. Now you can probably use some kind of people extractor to get David and Mel, but then you can have a rule that says there's the word wife occur in between David and Mel. And this is a very simple example, but it kind of demonstrates like what rules look like. And the next one is former President, U.S. President Barack Obama and the former First Lady Michelle Obama waved to the crowds in Ohio. And here you're looking for the words First Lady in between, and that's probably only going to occur once or twice. But basically, you can have this dictionary of words that you're looking at, that you need to look at if the people are married. And then there would also be a dictionary of words, like does the word sibling come in the sentence somewhere? Probably then they're not married. Or there could be words related to colleagues that people use. And there are also a part of speech aspect to it as well. For instance, one of the problems recently a friend mentioned was they wanted to know people who work, like they have some text, and they want to know people who, their current company and their previous company. Now, if you just use named entity recognition, like organization recognition kind of thing, you will get the name and you will probably get the company as well, but you won't get the order. And so typically you're looking for something past tense, like David worked at Accenture, for instance. So you're looking at that word worked, which is a past tense. So you could put these rules in to identify like very specific cases. So how does it work under the hood? So basically you have a bunch of labels, let's say 10 labels, or around 10 labeling functions. And then all of these functions are combined to produce the final label for every piece of data. Now, the easiest way to think about it is it's like a majority voting. So if you have 10 functions, and let's say you have one piece of data, and then 7 of them say this belongs to class A, and 3 of them say this belongs to class B. You do like the 7 minus 3, and then you get 4, and you say this belongs to class A. Now, one of the things to bear in mind that labeling functions can be very correlated. So 3 functions might be saying just the same thing. So basically, Snorkel on the background models the functions as a generated model in a factor graph, and then takes into account different types of correlations. So does this function enhance this function? Does this function go against this function? And parameterize all of that so that dependencies are taken into account. And so yeah, once you have the labels, then you can put it anywhere. Like once you have the training data, you can have any kind of discriminative model. After that, it could be an SVM, it could be a neural network, and then you have your tags. I feel like I'm nearly out of time, right? 2 minutes? 3, okay. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to skip, sorry. I'm going to skip some slides and I have some details of what the rules look like. I'm going to skip those, and I'll talk a little bit about thresholding and talk about the pipeline, because I think the most important part is to have like a system where you can, a system that works from the beginning to the end and have make sure different components work in it. So one of the things that very commonly happens with any machine learning for pipeline is it will give you the probability of being in the class. So let's say you have 2 classes, maybe it's a binomial distribution or not, just 2 classes, and then your model gives, and let's say your model says that there's a 0.6, the probability of being a binomial distribution is 0.6. So if your use case is such that you need high accuracy, you could just say that I will only accept the result if the accuracy is higher than 0.7 or higher than 0.8, depending on your use case. In this case, you will lose coverage. That is, a smaller amount of content would get tagged, but you would have higher quality data. And this is something that works. So this is like optimizing for precision rather than recall. And this is something that works well if you have a lot of data and your use case is such that you need high accuracy. A case where you don't need this is, let's say you're trying to do some kind of fraud detection based on language, and you kind of, so we had done one of these projects where we had a human in the loop. So the machine learning would go and sort of narrow down, let's say you have 10,000 documents, the machine learning model would say there are like 10 documents or 20 documents that could be fraudy, then a human would take a look and then say which ones were. And in that case, you want higher recall. So you want to get all of them, but make sure, but even if you get some wrong, it's fine because someone's looking. So I mean, it's a very simple concept, but I think like that. The other part is I want to talk a little bit about active learning, which is because we're always kind of starved for training data. Very often we will build our models and then find this gap between some range where we know our model is doing badly around 0.5, and identify that those content, send it back for annotations again. And that is active learning, like identify where your model is confused and get more training data in that area. That's a very typical practice. There are pros and cons. Pros are you kind of build a model with less training data. The main con is your model could be biased because your uncertainty regions might not be the best place to sample your training data. But sometimes, like, that's fine. So one of the things my interns ask me is very often is, if you write these things, like the model gets so biased, you know, that's not a very good model. I'm like, but that's fine because it's kind of serving the purpose we're trying to do. We're probably missing some cases, but we can get more, once we have more bandwidth to get more training data, we can get there. So finally, a little bit about the pipeline. So basically, initially you kind of produce training data using weak supervision. I will just say, like, for now, use transfer learning to generate features for these training data. Transfer learning is not the only way. There are different ways. There are other ways too people generate features. Also, it's important to think of non-NLP features when you're designing something like this. Maybe the number of views of a content is actually really important, and it should be part of your model. So it's kind of important to keep that in mind. And then you send it into the supervised learning pipeline. Could be a neural network, could be an SVM or a logistic regression. Once you send it in, it outputs a tag for every content and outputs a probability. If probability is greater than your threshold for your use case, then you have your inferred tags. You go to your database and put the tags next to the content. And if your threshold is not good, you either send it for active learning or you stop if you don't have any more bandwidth for training. Yeah. Like you only tag part of your data when you stop. Another very important part is it's very important to constantly iterate with product so that you understand the use case. Very often people would, at the beginning of the project, they'll say this is what we want to do, define it, and then go back and not talk to product, and then you come back with something which you thought you wanted to do initially, like everybody wanted to do initially, but maybe things have evolved or there were not enough communication and it's not exactly what you want to deliver. So having regular conversations on also like regular presentations on whatever project you're trying to do, even if it's machine learning, kind of keeps everybody in the loop. I think I'll end here.
Thank you so much, Sangha, for this thorough and pedagogical presentation. We have a time for a couple of questions, so please, I'm opening the floor for the questions. Yes.
Thank you. Which tools do you use?
Which
tools?
A lot of scikit-learn, and I mentioned Snorkel in the presentation. I use Keras for deep learning. I've used some amount of PyTorch as well. But scikit-learn, I think, kind of pervades into everything because it has really good tools. Like it has this function called classification report that gives you your accuracy, precision, recall per class. So you can just get how your model is doing. So even when I'm using Keras, I sometimes go to scikit-learn and go for their metrics.
And you talked about SageMaker. Do you use AWS?
Yes, we use AWS a lot. SageMaker, I've mainly used it for ground truth, and I'm kind of testing it to how, like, the quality of labels compared to our in-house. I'm testing it for the quality of labels compared to our in-house experts, and just because it's for ground truth, compared to in-house, Amazon is always cheaper, so it depends on the quality. And another thing that's nice about using like a Snorkel-like approach is it works well with crowdsourcing. So let's say if I can somehow find a problem where using 10 annotators from Amazon is cheaper than one annotator in-house, those 10 annotators might produce as good result as like one annotator who's an expert. So I'm kind of delving into that. We have other members in our team who are looking into SageMaker model management, and so we will probably move in that direction.
Mm-hmm. One more question. We have time for one more question. Yes, please. I will bring it.
How many rules do you think are necessary for one model to look at some kind of accurate?
Could you repeat, please?
Regarding majority voting, so you have to define a set of rules for each label. How many rules do you think are necessary? Not correlator rules, of course.
Yeah, so I don't think I can give you a number, but what happens is your Snorkel develops a generative model that gives you the probabilistic weight for, so for instance, it doesn't tell you that it belongs to class A or class B. It'll tell you the probability of belonging to class A is 0.7. So if you write better rules, and typically what happens is, back to one of the slides. So typically what happens is if you have like a two-class system, is as you, let's say you write 2 rules, you get like a little bit of your data populated, and then you write more rules, more of your data kind of gets tagged. So it's kind of hard to come to a number. It's also like rules are not golden eggs, or rather, like you don't get them that easily. You have to know about the subject, etc. So you get as much as you can, and then you look at the probability to decide whether you want to accept the results or not. And typically the Snorkel model also gives you like not just the probability but accuracy, precision, recall for the model that's being built.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sangha, for your presentation. And I would like just to remind that she prepared amazingly thorough slides, and we are going to put all those slides, how many there are? 35?
There were many.
Yeah. There were many of them. We are going to put them on the Medium page with the recap and the summary of the evening, so you can definitely check and deep dive into this information. So thank you very much. Shall we give her a round of applause? I really recommend you follow her. She tweets about recruitment, about tech, about diversity, and also about Raspberry Pi and Python. In the middle seat, thank you very much, Morgane Dalbert, who is also at Heetch, and she's a sourcer. And she tweets about tech and about recruitment, but also a lot about books and literature. She's into reading, so if you're interested in all kinds of things with reading, so you should follow her. And last but not least, Caroline is our queen of tweets. She has 2,300 plus followers. You should definitely follow her immediately if you don't. And she tweets about tech and recruitment and women machine learning and data science, and she's the person behind our Twitter account, but also a lot about music. So if you are into music, definitely this is the account to follow. And so how we are going to proceed? I'm going to start asking some questions, and then if you have some questions, please contribute. And the idea is to to realize that Twitter can be used professionally for people who work in data science, machine learning, in tech in general, and that it could be a very useful tool. So I have a first question, which I really prepared in a very sort of non-technical way. I would like to ask the three ladies how they started using Twitter and what was their first step. So Mathilde.
Where's the second microphone, please?
We are going to find it.
I started on Twitter because I went to an event, and one of my fellow recruiters wanted to tag me the day after on the event, and they could not because I was not on Twitter. They found a girl that is called Mathilde Kurzawa, and he tagged her, and we don't know who she is. So that's how I realized that I had to be there. I had to occupy the space because even if I did not produce tweets, even if I did not write things, people could tag me, quote things, and relate. So I had to be there and have an account. So I created this account. At first it was just to get tagged on events. And then I took to the game, and now I'm tweeting almost every day. So yeah, I had to be there to occupy the space.
Caroline, maybe you will take
So,
pure chance, pure hazard. I was working in a firm that has a great communication with their people, and they were a big example. They were occupying space, and they had a big presence online to Twitter. So I wanted mine, which was a bit selfish, and so then I created sourcing. At first, I really hated Twitter.
At first, you really hated Twitter.
So took a bit of time to get used to it and to actually like it. So yeah, it was pure chance. And then I become addicted, and I use it every day, and I'm using it to share and also to be visible from candidates, from recruiters, and from the tech community. I want you to try.
Caroline?
Okay. When I started on Twitter, I just used it as a personal tool. And when I joined Creo, I was having like 140 followers, which is nothing. And I started actually to follow experts in machine learning and data science to better understand the field I was working in. So I started by following Gaël Varroco, Yann Lequin, people like this. And then I understood there was a game behind. People were tweeting during conferences. People were sharing blog posts. People were like giving visibility to their work and creating a community. So then I was like, there's something to do there. And I did the same as Morgan and Mathilde. I wanted to give visibility to my candidates. I also wanted to keep being into their mind without making too much effort. Meaning, I job offers, research papers. I'm going to like share knowledge basically, and this is how like things developed. And then I became addicted like Morgan, and I think one day I will do an AA of Twitter.
Right. So you all mentioned the word addicted, and so my next question is: so I mean, Twitter is addictive. It is designed to be addictive. And so how do you manage your time? Because if one is not careful, one can spend the whole day on Twitter and no work gets done. Who wants to take this question?
I mainly use Twitter when I have a break, meaning I don't smoke. So I don't go outside with people. So when I want to, put some fresh air in my brain, I go on Twitter. When I go back home, when I go to work, I use Twitter. And the really bad thing I do, which you should never do, is when I watch a TV show or a movie, I'm also on Twitter. So that never stops. And I use Twitter like very spontaneously. I don't do automatic tweeting, for instance. I don't set up tools to make it to follow up people automatically, because I think then you just kill the game. So, like, make it a learning experience, and also make it something which is both offline and online. For instance, today, like, if you had told us that Sangha would have like come to Paris to talk to one of our meetup, I would have said, ha ha ha. So it's also possible because we give visibility to our work thanks to the platform of Twitter.
So, somewhat related question, you can continue from the first one, how you manage your time. So how also not to get overwhelmed by this sea of information? Like on Twitter, you can follow everything from knitting to machine learning and everything in between in all possible languages. And so, I mean, it can be a bit disorienting. So if you can talk about this as well. Now, I'm a really bad example. I'm managing your time on Twitter because I am on Twitter at the moment. Like right now, I am tweeting. But I put my phone in airplane mode from like 11 to 8 in the morning, so this way I don't see tweets and I don't tweet. I have separate accounts. I have an account for tech and recruitment, and I have an account for other things, which is not my real name. It's an account on which I tweet about feminism and pop culture, so it's unrelated. This way it allows me to decide which time I spend looking at which subjects. Also, you can use lists on Twitter to put some accounts on themed lists. This way you can only take a look at some lists that you want to look right now and not look at everything, because what I think the feeling that you might get is that this fear of missing out, like you want to read all the tweets, but it's not possible. So don't try to do that. It's not going to happen. Let go and admit to yourself that you won't see everything, and it's fine. It's fine.
So I'm a really, really bad example because Twitter is always running. I go on my desktop, on my phone, so I don't manage my time. I'm always on Twitter. You can use, I just scroll, and whatever I like or tweet, and the rest I don't even read it. So I have a few, I have a top 10 accounts I'm really following and actually clicking on them to see what they tweet. But otherwise I'm just scrolling. But when I do publish, when I do tweet, it's always with a purpose in mind. I do it to share an article or something I really want to share with my network, and mostly I'm just making jokes most of the time. So that I don't manage my time at all.
Right. So you are all addicted, as you said. So I'm very bad at tweet. I have something like 100 followers or something, so there is nothing interesting, and I very rarely tweet. But I understand that you can like, you can retweet, you can do something else. So how do you manage all these activities? You can do lots of things. You can also now do one tweet after another called Tweetsome, and you can also do live tweets. There are plenty of things. How do you choose what to do, and what would you recommend people doing?
Very pragmatic advice would be when you start, liking is like a bookmark. It can be, I spotted this article I really want to read, but I don't have time right now, so I will go back to it, and I liked it. You can also retweet. So retweet is going to give more visibility because it's going to appear in the feed of all the people who follow you. So sometimes when you really like something, you can both like and retweet. The best is also to tweet yourself because it's even more engaging to your community. In order to also be efficient, you have to follow the conference's hashtag. Right now there's a SIGIR in Paris about information retrieval. You can check what's happening and see what the talks are about. Today the JuliaCon started, and it's something you can start having a look at. And by doing this, you can also spot people that you want to start following. Then you see what they post, and you get inspiration, and you get how people are playing the game, basically.
So on my side that I like too much tweets, so I'm using, I don't know what it's called in English, I'm actually bookmarking the tweet. It's seen it in Dutch. So I'm saving them in a list to read them later. The thing is, it's not really easy at first, so just follow the big accounts, see how they do, and maybe mimic them. Don't be afraid to put your opinion down, to share an article or share anything with your point of view. It's what's going to get you following and engaging.
I'm going to counterbalance and go in the sense of Mathilde. When I started, I didn't want to use Twitter because I thought that nobody would be interested in what I was going to share. And as soon as I used it from a professional perspective, then I started to take pleasure at it, sharing a research paper, giving visibility to the candidates I wanted to hire, or giving visibility to the research team I was hiring for. And so when you do that, do not mix professional content and personal content. Opinion is good when it's related to your field, like machine learning, recruitment, or whatever. However, don't share political content or, because people are going to get lost. When you have a Twitter account, it's imagine yourself as a newspaper. So you need to have an editorial line that you stick to it. And so, I think you will both agree, there's sometimes, when it's the end of the day, you're going to a concert, you saw a magnificent play, or you read an amazing book, and you show to people that you are not just a researcher in machine learning or a tech recruiter, and you actually have other interests.
Right, so that's very interesting, and it brings us questions. I mean, I really need to rethink what I'm doing on Twitter and basically purify my line and stop, because it's really like very mishmash. So how do you grow a number of your followers? I remember once I said, I have this great idea, now I'm going to tweet it, and I'll have hundreds of people who like it. I had like 1 like, and I don't know who was this, probably a bot. But so you have quite a number of followers. I mean, as I said, Caroline is quite exceptional. So, I mean, what are your tips and techniques for growing your number of followers? Because if we spend so much time on Twitter, then because someone should be reading what we are saying.
Well, I have a mic, but I'm not sure I'm the right person to answer, because I don't have many followers. I don't try to grow, hack, or whatever. I have about 250 followers, but quite regularly when I tweet, I get like 15 or 20 likes, which shows high engagement of my followers. And that's what I aim for. It's not the number, because Twitter's full of bots anyway, so numbers don't mean anything. What I would like to have is have a following that is interested by what I do, that likes and interacts with my content, and yeah, that's basically what makes me happy. So I don't have 4,000 followers, or I don't really know how to do it anyway.
The best tip I can give you is to stay on authentic. Be yourself. So if you want to use it from a professional point of view, do that. If you want to use it from a personal point of view, you can do it well. The thing is, do not pretend to be someone you're not with. So that's what will give you following and engagement. Like Mathilde said, the goal is not to have as many followers as you can get, is to have engagement. So the followers you get with retweet, like, or even debate with you through private message. I've met some really interesting people through Twitter, like Caroline,
Yeah, I heard that you're on thanks to Twitter. I'm thinking about a machine learning researcher, Gabriel Per. He joined Twitter very recently, and he really did a good job. For instance, he was doing a simulation with his data sets or the results following experiments, and he did GIFs. So, he was not just sharing the archive paper, he was also like making it visually interesting. And this guy grew from 0 to, I think it's 2,000 roughly today, within maybe less than 1 year. Okay, he's also very well known in the field, so there might be a bias. But for instance, when I started, I really did it spontaneously without wanting to have a lot of people following me. But then, thanks to Twitter, you have the analytics field that enables you to see what are the interests of the people following you. So obviously, for instance, people are loving astrophysics, tech, and cats in my followers. So sometimes, I try to purposely share content based on those topics. And one thing that we didn't mention is also highlighting other people. Don't only make it like a personal branding thing. If you do that, I think it's stupid. People feel it and they don't want to engage with you. But as soon as you share knowledge and you highlight other people's expertise, then it's becoming interesting. And that's giving also a purpose to Twitter, because Twitter can be like a little bit superficial sometimes, and it's only expressed when there's like a really strong political debate, so people don't want to go there. But I think it's a great opportunity to actually meet people.
Right, so you said it's a great opportunity to meet people, and at the same time, Twitter can be a bit superficial. I also find that Twitter can be sometimes very negative, and I follow someone, a former professor of mine, and she has enormous amount of completely irrelevant negative comments at whatever she says, and she tweets, about Roman history and modern politics. So sort of it's not sort of the probably it's even not the most
Roman history is not the most contradictory topic, let's put it this way. So my next question would be about negative experiences. Did anything negative happen to you on Twitter? How do you deal with that? Sort of what would be your advice to people who go out on Twitter and start tweeting and someone says to them whatever? Yeah, I did. Yeah, but it happens, I mean, statistically, and you know that very well, once you get a little bit of attention, you're going to get some negative press, and that's part of the game. So it's not easy, especially when you do Twitter. I mean, it's not my job, I don't get paid to do it, it's not, I'm just doing it because I like it, so it's really hard to see, like, as you said, systematically negative comments. I do block those people because I don't, well, some people don't block anyone because they think like internet should be open to free speech and stuff. I don't do that to get abused, so I do block people. I do report them. If you see, if you read abusive content on Twitter, don't hesitate to report it. Unfortunately, right now, I have to say that Twitter are not very good at suppressing material that is not appropriate. They are trying to improve, but don't count on them. Block the person, report the tweet, and also support the person that is being abused. When I got insulted every day, a lot of people that were following me on Twitter were seeing it, reporting it, and then dropping me a message saying, don't pay attention, that this guy is nothing, and it was really, really warming and nice. So spread good vibes instead of bad things, and report people who abuse.
Yeah, I remember one experience when I was at Creo, a Russian hacker got me and like reached out and was like, oh, I spotted a weakness on your website, I want money. So that I didn't deal with it myself, I sent it to the communication team of the company. And one sad typical story is that by the existence of WiMLDS Paris, we often get sexist comments. So what we try to do is not to give visibility to it. When it's sometimes an opportunity to give a good counter-argumentation, it could be useful. But usually what I do is like I hide people. If it's abusive content, I also block them and I report them. But when it's just stupidity, I just leave it like that, because if you give them visibility, then you are going to give more importance to it. So yes, it's something that you can get yourself brace for impact, but it's also part of the game, and it's nice also to get like sometimes shaken up, because then you become aware and careful about the content you share.
I might add the content and the wording. I recently made a mistake doing for Heetch. The wording was really bad, but I wasn't aware of it. So it's not something you do voluntarily, but you need to be aware of that. And when someone comes see you and say you could maybe word it otherwise or formulate it differently, you have to listen and not to close yourself and say I'm right. And it's really important. You can get negativity, but you can also by mistake be negative. So that's why I'm really, really careful when I tweet. I wasn't at first, I made a few mistakes. So now I learn my lesson. So before you tweet it, maybe you will read and ask someone else if it's okay.
Right,
I'm sorry, I don't necessarily agree. Don't censor yourself. Like, don't write what you want to write. If people are not happy, then it's their problem and it's not yours. If you're tweeting in your name, I mean, if you're not tweeting under your company or anything, I'm not sure we should, I'm not sure you have to change your tweet because you think what people are going to tell you about this tweet. You know what I mean?
I do know what in this case, the wording was really open. I just made a mistake. And I'm so used to do it every day and to do it instinctively, I didn't think. That's why I'm putting the accent on it. This was a honest mistake, and the wording was really, really bad. So no, if people ask me to change my tweet and my tweet is good, no, I won't change it.
Of course. Thank you. Right, very interesting. So I'm getting more and more scared. Twitter looks like this addictive minefield where I should really know. Maybe I should actually delete my account forever and just stick to some kind of sort of paper information. So before I open the floor for the questions, I have one final question. So, is there anything about Twitter you know now and you wish you had known when you started? And anything that a beginner should know?
I would say that if you follow people that are in your field, usually they are very nice and they are very happy to interact with you and support what you do. And I did not dare doing it, and now I'm just starting. When I am at an event, I tag the person speaking in my tweets, and very often they retweet me or they answer or they interact with my tweet, which gives me more visibility and which allows me to, well, it opens their network basically to me, so I can meet new people and chat with new people. So don't think you're going to be obnoxious, don't think you're going to be annoying, just do it. Like, if you write an article and you talk about someone, well, send them the article, tag them, and they're going to be very happy, and you'll be able to chat with them and get retweeted easily. So that's what I would tell myself, like, dare to do that more.
I'm going to be very pragmatic. Use GIFs, use emojis, use hashtag, and don't be scared. Follow people and share content. And one thing I would like to add before questions, you might have noticed we're 3 tech recruiters, and it's meant to be a tech meetup. Chloe, Marina, and Natalie are the techest of the team. I think for an engineer and for a researcher, it's critical to be on Twitter, to give visibility to your work, to get updates about what's happening in your field, and also to extend your network, because it's easy to connect with your peers, with your colleagues on a daily basis, but thanks to Twitter and also like cross social media, you can like extend your expertise and your network. So by saying that, like, not only use Twitter, also go on Medium and write content. Also share stuff on LinkedIn. I know some of you are like, oh no, there's only recruiters there. No, there's not only recruiters. Like, people are actually using it. You can also post GitHub repos, stuff like this. So be creative, think about cross functionalities, and then you're going to become big.
I was pretty much going to say what Mathilde said, so I don't know stuff now that I wish I could. So, no, to add to what Mathilde said, don't try to send a DM, a private message to people. Start a conversation. That will make you seem more human, which is easy to forget on Twitter.
Thanks a lot for that. I feel that on one hand, we already learned a lot. On the other hand, we just scratched the surface, because Twitter is really like a very big ocean. But I also feel that I should ask the audience whether you have any questions, because this is your opportunity. These people are real pros, and I realize how lucky we have to have them here, 3 of them. Please.
Hi. So, being a technical recruiter, I'm just wondering how you do a candidate that is not on Twitter.
The question was, how do technical recruiters find candidates which are not on Twitter? Well, I think you're going to reveal the secrets of the trade. Go ahead.
It started like this. Researchers, it's awesome. You go on archive, you read their papers, and then you find them on Twitter, and you're like, hey, I really like what you're doing. And so it's not even like sending an email to approach them. It's you know, you are flattered when someone is sharing your work. So this is the first step. Some people that are not on Twitter, their content gets shared by other people, so this is how you spot them, and then you end up on GitHub, or you end up on HackerRank or Kaggle a lot. So it's all about like doing those jumps in between platforms.
More questions? Great.
Like you said, you're kind of the recruiter side, and I would like to ask in the audience if you have some experience about, like you said, it's for a researcher or for engineers, it's fundamental to use Twitter. And I would like to hear what the experience of some people using it on this side. So it's not, I mean, probably not for you to answer, but maybe for someone in the audience.
So, one of the persons who initially was on the panel, she's actually a data scientist, Marie-Lange, but unfortunately she couldn't come. But if anyone in the audience want to testify, please.
So I'm kind of like semi-thriller person in the sense that I'm not addicted and I don't do it very. So I'm not addicted and I also don't do it regularly. So there will be a phase of 1 month when I just don't do it because I don't feel like it. But the reason I started Twitter was I was an astrophysicist and I wanted to move into data science. And I wanted, I only started for professional reasons. And I wanted to find, I was just looking for hashtag data science. I was looking for hashtag machine learning, NLP, and all the terms. And then I would find more and more content, and then I would discover more and more people. But I would learn about these different conferences. So it just opened this whole avenue for me. But that was 5 years ago. And then I started retweeting interesting content. It took me a while to actually write my own tweets. But then recently, I've also started directly messaging people. I messaged a Stanford researcher who was related to the Snorkel project, but I just said he was doing something on images, and I just said, I'm kind of interested in what you're doing. I directly messaged WiMLDS, I messaged Caroline, and that's how I'm here. So I think it's a really good way to network. It's also low maintenance if you want it to be. You don't have to be on it all the time, or you don't have to be super active about it. I try to be politically correct, and I try to follow your advice to be careful about what you're posting, just because it is on my personal name, but I have kind of developed this brand of being my professional site. I would like to do something like what you do, create a account that doesn't have my name and then post what I want. So I have one question: do you switch back and forth on your phone? Okay. Second account. So I think it's really useful. It's also low maintenance for me most of the time.
Okay, Caroline wants to continue.
I'm thinking about one Russian engineer who was never posting anything anywhere, and he got spotted after I asked him to join Twitter via Facebook Recruiter, and I lost him, but it's fine. And I also wanted to stress something, which is not funny, and this is also why the panel is happening tonight. There's also a misrepresentation in the field. There's less women out there giving visibility to their work on social media, so it's critical. And I wanted to stress one community which is doing great. It's the R communities. Mara Averick, for instance, who's working for R Studio, she has 30K followers, and she does a great job as doing funny tweets and sharing R packages that do data visualization. Those people are people that we need to look up to and to take as examples, and then to impressionate as Morgan said. So it's important.
More questions?
You're talking a lot about Twitter as a professional channel. So why Twitter over LinkedIn?
question was why we chose Twitter today.
So why Twitter over LinkedIn? It's shorter, it's spontaneous, and you can actually make content attractive, more attractive on Twitter with a GIF, with a picture. You can the hashtag works better on Twitter than on LinkedIn. You can actually find all the tweets with the same hashtag. I find the LinkedIn algorithm is a bit tricky about that, which is only my opinion. So Twitter is for spontaneous thing, and it's funnier than LinkedIn. It's more, it's more fun. So people are on Twitter to share and to engage. Though LinkedIn to use it as a, how do you say?
Appearance or superficial reading.
Right, I think I might interfere because I think we're having here two camps, sort of Twitter and LinkedIn camps, and I'll explain you the origin of this panel. We're having a lot of discussions where people would asking the same question, why Twitter, why Twitter? Another machine learning engineer would say, why Twitter? And then we had those stars, tweeting away as if there were no tomorrow. And we said, listen, well, shall we explain once and for all why you should be on Twitter? And with respect to LinkedIn, obviously there are two schools, and I must confess I am not on Twitter, I'm on the other network, because that's where my job interests are. But if there is enough interest from the community, we can also do a panel on LinkedIn, what to do and not to do on LinkedIn. One of the topics very important for many machine learning people, data science, and any basically technical people, how to avoid bad recruiters on LinkedIn. That could be very interesting conversation. So if you're interested, let us know, and we are in the process of setting up the program for the next season, and we would be happy to accommodate your desires. Having said that, I think we don't have much time left. Let's give our wonderful speakers a big round of applause. Thank you so much, Mathilde, Morgan, and Caroline. I feel I learned an enormous amount, and I feel that I only scratched the surface. I also feel I should give it Twitter like a second chance. And just before we finish this panel, did any of you tweet anything about this panel? Please raise your hands. Yes, please, don't be afraid, I'm not going to eat you. Thank you so much in any way for being a good speaker.